Hey there, this is episode 76 of the Unveiled podcast. Thanks for joining me today. Last episode, I talked about accepting the whole package of your husband, even though we would love to custom design him. And I think that topic segues well into what I'm going to talk about today, which is unconditional love. We've got to be practicing unconditional love with our spouse and our kids, and ideally with all humans. But how do we do that? And what is unconditional love? At first thought, I would say, of course, I love my family unconditionally. But upon further reflection, do I really, or do I all the time? I don't want us to get too hung up on whether or not we are perfectly loving our husbands or kids unconditionally, because after all, none of us is perfect. But the goal of this episode is to encourage us to stop and really think about it and then make adjustments if necessary. So, a few months ago, my son asked me to go to Walmart with him. And when I asked why, he said he wanted to show me a Lego set that he really wanted. So, I went with him, and my jaw dropped when he pointed to a Star Wars Lego set with a $250 price tag. Oh, I said, that's a really cool set. I see it's $250. Well, that sounds like something that might make a good birthday gift. But his birthday isn't until July, so I was basically saying, well, maybe you can have it in 4 months. And he said, why do I have to wait for my birthday? And I told him that, well, big price tag items are usually reserved for holidays. And his response was, why can't you buy it for me just because? Well, I wasn't sure if I was getting manipulated or not, so I just told him I would keep it in mind. Well, about 2 weeks later, I heard a message on unconditional love, and I had this sneaking suspicion that I could be better at showing unconditional love toward my son and not getting so frustrated with him when he didn't do what I had asked him to do. So I asked God to show me the ways in which I was unintentionally communicating conditional love, and He did show me. And by the way, that's a great exercise you can do as well. Ask God to show you. I asked God, well, what's one way that I can show my son unconditional love? And you guessed it. He said, go buy the Lego set. Yikes. Then I realized that $250 was really a small price to pay for my son to feel loved unconditionally. So I went to Walmart, I bought the set, and then I put it on his desk with a sticky note that said, just because. There were no strings attached. It was not because he had earned it. It was not a reward for good behavior or doing chores, just because. So is unconditional love buying expensive Lego sets? Well, sometimes. Sometimes unconditional love means extravagant love for no reason. It's the kind of love that God showed us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. We didn't have to earn it. The website Healthline defines it this way. Unconditional love, simply put, is love without strings attached. It's love you offer freely. You don't base it on what someone does for you in return. You simply love them and want nothing more than their happiness. In other words, we're not showing love in order to get love in return. We're not loving this person based on their ability to meet our needs and make us happy. We accept the whole package, no matter what. Unconditional love is the kind of love that would lay down its life for someone else. It's the kind of love that accepts a person as they are and forgives them quickly when they are wronged by them. It's a love that makes the other person feel secure, knowing there is nothing they can do to lose your love. One website I looked up said it this way. An example of unconditional love is loving your partner without wanting to change them. You love unconditionally the person that they are now and will continue to do so no matter what happens. You do not expect them to change or even have a strong desire to change them. Not changing them. We discussed that desire to change him last week, and it's a toughie. Most of us want to change our husband, even if it's just a few tweaks here and there. But unconditional love is loving him as is, no matter what he does. Now, what does unconditional love not mean? And this is important. It does not mean ignoring relationship issues. That's not healthy. You can address an issue while still approaching the person with respect and love and not demanding they change or become accusing of them. You're just dealing with the situation at hand. It does not mean neglecting your own needs or tolerating abuse, for sure. You can love a person while still having boundaries against being abused. You can remove yourself from a toxic situation while continuing to pray for that person, let go of resentment toward them, and choosing to love them without expecting anything in return. Now, what does the Bible say about unconditional love? There's a great passage in Luke 6 that alludes to it, I think. It says, verses 32 to 34 in the NIV says it this way. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. In other words, why love if it's just to get something in return? Is that even really love? Good question. The Message version, I like how it says it. If you only love the lovable, do you expect a pat on the back? Run-of-the-mill sinners do that. If you help those who help you, do you expect a medal? Garden variety sinners do that. If you only give for what you hope to get out of it, do you think that's charity? The stingiest of pawnbrokers does that. Unconditional love is harder, but it's also better. I think these verses, interestingly, are sandwiched right between love your enemies and do not judge. So Luke 6:27 to 31 tells us to love our enemies, bless those that curse us, turn our other cheek when slapped, give to everyone who asks, and of course the golden rule, do to others what you would have them do to you. So we're told to love our enemies, and then we're told, well, that anyone can love the lovable. It's harder to love those that we don't like at the moment. And then it's followed up by the verses 37 and 38. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Wow. Why do you think that follows the other verses about loving the unlovable? It's there for a reason. Could it be because maybe they won't seem so unlovable if we stop judging them? And after all, isn't forgiveness part of unconditional love? And the statement that with the measure we use, it will be measured back to us, isn't that telling us that conditional love is going to beget conditional love and vice versa? The Bible tells us that we reap what we plant. I think these all go together. I am very convicted whenever I think about this topic. When I do something nice for someone, I'd love a thank you. I'd love for them to reciprocate the help, but that's not unconditional love. When my son was younger, he would not say I love you to my husband or me. He was going through some really difficult emotional stuff at that time. And I found this very hard, that my cute little boy wouldn't say I love you. And I remember my sister asking me, what if he never does? What if he chooses not to love you? Will you still love him? It was a valid question that I had not asked myself. And the answer was a wholehearted yes. But I had to come to terms with the fact that he may never express his love for me. And I would choose to love him anyway, even if it was one way, which it's not. But I had to be willing to do that. Conditional love, on the other hand, is wanting to control the other person, which we can't. It is used to manipulate the other person to do what we want. Ouch. I know I've done that. Conditional love has conditions. So if those conditions aren't met, there's no love. And therefore the relationship ends. And we don't want that. Unconditional love is what makes marriages and relationships last through difficult times. So ask yourself, do I love my husband and children unconditionally the way God loves me? And ask God to show you where you are showing conditional love and how you can change and then do it. Remember, control is just an illusion anyway. Begin loving unconditionally and see how your relationships thrive with that kind of love. I'd love to hear your stories. I'd also love to hear if you're confused by all of that. You can email me at Anne, ANNE, at synergiamm.com. That's SYNERGIAMM.com. This week, may you experience God's unconditional love and may you pass it on to others. Go in peace and joy.